The goal of moving to Cosmos is essentially to keep progressing in decentralization, starting a journey in the Cosmos space. It's very exciting. The people are just welcoming and extremely smart. I don't think it's a race for speed of block, to be honest. Of course, you want to be fast enough. And there is a plan for 5 different milestones. It makes the dYdX ecosystem super busy and extremely excited to welcome the version 4.
Welcome to the BareMetalPodcast.
Hello everyone, this is Martin from RockOAX at the BareMetalPodcast. I've got here Charles Dossier with me from the dYdX Foundation. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
So, can you tell us, dYdX, very exciting project. There's a lot of activity and sort of thinking around dYdX, especially in the Cosmos community. I'll know that many viewers already understand and have all the details, but not everyone is going to be in that class. So can you give us a short intro to what dYdX is?
Sure. So dYdX is a decentralized order book exchange focusing on perpetuals. So perpetuals are futures contracts which never expire. So every hour, the contract kind of re-update its price via some oracles. And it allows essentially traders to express opinions on the market in a very efficient way. If you're not very familiar with derivatives and perpetuals, it's one of the largest markets in the world of crypto. So it's more or less 10 times bigger than the crypto spot market. And you find a similar pattern in the equity markets as well. So the derivative markets in general are way larger than the spot market, should it be equity spot or crypto spot. And dYdX was founded in 2017 by a former Coinbase engineer called Antonio Giuliano. He's the CEO and founder of dYdX Trading Inc. and is really at the origin of the project itself. So 2017, the project was launched, first built on Ethereum mainnet. Later on, the project has been really kind of forward thinking and an early adopter of the new kind of layers and infrastructure in the world of blockchain. So early on, dYdX essentially migrated to layer 2. On the top of StarkX on Starkware, and the team and the ecosystem overall of dYdX is busy right now, essentially building the version 4 of dYdX, which is being built out of the Cosmos SDK for the chain, and will be including as well a whole lot of new improvement and new features as well.
So I'm excited to dig into all of that, but let's take it from the top. One of the things, so I'm a software developer, right? I'm not a trader, but one of the things that caught my attention was, I hope I'm saying this right, many futures primitives derivatives primitives like futures or options have already existed, but perpetuals is something that's been developed by the crypto market. Is that correct? Have perpetuals been applied before crypto came up?
Absolutely. I think you're right here. Perpetuals were invented, to the best of my knowledge, in 2017, 2018 by the BitMEX team out of Hong Kong. So think of Ben Delo, Arthur Hayes, and they created this kind of futures contract with no expiration date. So they're fairly new and they were created in the world of crypto. That's right, yeah.
That's interesting. So let's get back into the question that I think is a point of pride for the Cosmos ecosystem, which is why you guys decided to move your tech stack over to Cosmos, right? I mean, there's all this exciting tech right now in Ethereum. Nobody can miss it. There's a lot happening in the world of rollups, in the world of ZK, but you guys have decided to go, use the Cosmos SDK stack. Plus, you guys decided to, build your own entire chain. So, what came up that made you guys decide this?
That's a great question. I think it's really a decision which was made by engineers and by product owners with one kind of early vision, which diligently keep executing on, is making sure that dYdX as a protocol delivers the most performance and the biggest liquidity in the world of derivative exchange overall. So the goal of moving to Cosmos is essentially to keep progressing in decentralization. That's one first point. So in the current, when you build your application on top of different blockchains, you essentially depend and you have a very close relationship with the underlying blockchain. So in the early days, the underlying blockchain was the Ethereum mainnet. Later on, it was the layer 2 from Starkware, StarkX. This building on the top of others' technology, essentially, you have to come with a few trade-offs to essentially accommodate the technology, the underlying technology. And what the team at dYdX wanted to execute on is to keep progressing in terms of decentralization. The reality of DeFi, and this is a similar reality for layer 2s, you always have a few components which are not totally decentralized yet for technical reasons, for all kinds of reasons. And the goal for dYdX is to really stay at the forefront of decentralization and decentralizing as much as we can as soon as the technology allows us to do that. And the Cosmos SDK allows us to progress in various things. So first, the matching engine. So when you think of an order book type of exchange, a matching engine is where essentially all the orders, should they be buy or sell orders, will be kind of listed and match depending on the price of the market and how these orders wants to express themselves, right? So this is a very high velocity type of database. It's very demanding. And as per today on the version 3 of dYdX, this order book is actually off-chain. There is no blockchain which is capable to essentially receive orders of buying and selling, cancellations of orders, growth and retractions of orders at a high velocity enough to enable a good trading experience. So the matching engine in version 4 of dYdX will be decentralized, and maybe we can come back to this a little bit later. Later, there is some other functionalities which allows us essentially to grow the throughput, accelerate the finality of the trades, as well as preparing, I would say, the foundations for new product and new offering. I guess from a pure engineering perspective, building your own chain means that as a project, you start to essentially have the opportunity to control in a certain way the full stack. So you don't depend on the roadmap progress of someone else. You don't depend on the decisions of product roadmap of someone else. And when you keep building on the top of blockchains, which are general purpose blockchains, you have to do trade-off, because as an application, you do trade-off because the underlying blockchain decided to go more in one direction or another. By building your own blockchain, you essentially guarantee that the lower layer on your stack are designed and optimized for your specific use case. And that's a very big difference. It means that engineers can really optimize a full flow, and in the world of derivative, it's every nanosecond counts, every optimization is big impact. So it's really enable, I would say, the new iterations of the protocol and the new version of dYdX to grow and grow stronger.
Makes absolute sense. So you guys are in some sense sort of the flagship, guys who are realizing this vision of the Cosmos, that when a project grows big enough, they will gravitate toward a sovereign chain, right? So just they can control the entire stack. So you guys are at that phase. I'd love to go through these, through the thinking here. Bearing the roadmap issue or the dependence on the technology, is there? Have you guys considered like sort of building a roll-up, on Ethereum? Has that been in your mind? And you're saying that's not for us. What was the thinking there? So you said you want to control the whole stack. I understand. What I'm interested in, is there other reasons you guys decided to build the chain?
It's really picking up the technology which is the most ready for productions and prime time, essentially. So if you reconcile some of the comments from various engineers and Antonio Giuliano, the CEO of dYdX, there was really, at the time the decision was made, a full analysis of all the different options being made. The reality is layer 2s are still very early in their growth, and the Cosmos SDK was already a kind of battle tested, used by many people in the world of exchanges, and offering some kind of stability. So I guess that's really kind of driven the decision, thinking dYdX is probably not a project which is supposed to be building and designing his own chain, but more finding a kind of off-the-shelf solution, battle-tested, stable, in order to migrate and think of the application, and from this application, what is the best kind of foundation for building upon the new version of dYdX.
Makes perfect sense. You guys picked Cosmos or picked the stack to have this full sovereignty, full control over the roadmap. But this also gives you some additional freedoms. So I'm curious, has that changed your outlook on what the dYdX token could be? Or have you guys decided to use this flexibility in interesting ways that you couldn't do before?
Yeah, so a few months ago, there was some public blog post essentially explaining that potentially if the community decide to, the current dYdX token can become a utility token in the context of the dYdX chain. So this has to go through different votes with the community, but there will be it will be a proof of stake chain built with the Cosmos SDK, and this proof of stake chain can potentially, again, if the community decide to use the dYdX token as a bond to secure the chain. So it's potentially a new use case for the token indeed, yeah.
And so the fees on the new chain are also going to be paid in dYdX, or how would this work? Will there be a different sort of fee token on the Cosmos chain?
So we have to wait, I guess, a few more weeks to know more. There is a public testnet coming up. There is a lot of publications which will be giving more details. I don't have the answer myself, to be honest. We are at the foundation active members of the community, but we're not developing per se the software at all. So we are definitely extremely focused and kind of gathering all the bits and pieces of information we get. But when it comes to this fees structure, I think you can be optimistic, but you have to wait for the final information to be released.
Right. For the devs to reach consensus, social consensus inside the development team.
And the community, the ecosystem of dYdX is essentially migrating to being managed by a set of DAOs, by the community, by votes, by token holders, by various stakeholders around the ecosystem. So there will be a lot of decisions. There is the dYdX forum, which is very active, where you see, I would say, a really good representation of the multitude and the variety of skill sets there is in the ecosystem of dYdX. And what is really energizing to me is to see that we've got people which are extremely focused for a long time with solid experience in building infrastructure. You've got people which are expert in all the trading kind of application within the exchange protocol itself. You've got people which are traders, market makers, so they come with very specific skills. And all of this is being discussed on the forum. dYdX.forum is a website you want to start with. And what is very inspiring about this ecosystem is, as I said earlier, the diversity of people. So it's not only infrastructure engineers or other type of engineers. It's really a full set and an ecosystem of people starting from the infrastructure up to the application.
So our listeners can learn more on dYdX.forum. That's if they're interested in reading up on what's coming. I want to dig it more into the technical. You already mentioned the order book engine, right? So the classical difficulty and classical problem is the mismatch between, say, block times and transaction processing on typical blockchains, which take seconds, right, in the normal sort of setup, versus this extremely performance-hungry, order book style matching engine. So I'm wondering, can you tell us more about how that should work in dYdX? When you say it's off-chain, how does it settle? Are validators running the matching engine? Who runs this? I'm really curious in the technical construction here.
That's a great question, and that's a very interesting experiment, which I think many people will look at in the coming months. So technically, today in the version 3 of dYdX, the order book is off-chain because no blockchain is capable to maintaining the velocity of the order book. The decision and the architecture decided for the version 4 of dYdX, the upcoming version of dYdX, is essentially to decentralize the order book. The order book will not be on-chain. It will be decentralized by being essentially shared and updated and sitting within the memory of the validators. So the validators on the dYdX chain will have two main missions. The number one mission will be to verifying and building the consensus as well as minting new blocks. So that's a very classic role for validators. And the second role, second mission of validators within the dYdX ecosystem will be to host in their memory a copy of the order book and updating this order book by essentially gossiping between one another. So that's really a new type of architecture where technically the order book becomes decentralized, but the order book will not be on chain. So even though the chain might have a fast kind of block time, a good trading experience cannot afford to have like a few seconds of block time. So the architectural choice of essentially hosting the order book within the memory of the validators enable to decentralize the order book without leaving on the table too much latency, which will be essentially suboptimal for traders.
So let me think through how that would work. So in some, there are two mempools now. One is like a transaction mempool of matched transactions that are going to go on chain and be manufactured in the block, just like with normal, I guess, with a standard blockchain. But then there's also this other mempool, this other cache, where I have waiting orders. So these are like transactions that are waiting to happen in some sense.
Yeah.
So the authorized.
So, yeah. Let me try to walk you through the life cycle of an order. So the user will essentially place the order in a decentralized front end or via an API. There is different ways people access the dYdX ecosystem overall. The order will be routed to a validator, and the validator will essentially gossip that transactions with other validators. So for example, saying Charles would like to essentially buy asset X for $1. And then the validators will keep updating their order book until at some point, someone meets my request for buying, and the order will be matched, right? So after the order is being matched, then this order will be essentially moving down to consensus, and the one validator will be picked within the chain to be the proposer, and the selected validator will match the order and essentially add them to the next order book. When there is a proposed block, it continues and it goes through the consensus process, right? So if a large enough percentage of validators agree on these transactions and recognize that this order really happened on the right time, and by the time the order matched, there was still the availability of the buyer and the seller, then this block is essentially committed and saved on chain, and all the validators will get an update on the final execution and settlement of this order. So it's a full process which comes not exactly via different mempools. It's just one mempool which is getting updated regularly by the validators, and eventually finding consensus and finality at the block minting stage.
That's interesting. So if I'm getting this correctly, so any validator, any node, any validator can accept sort of a new order, and then they gossip among each other, but only the block proposer that's now active is doing the matching and then storing this, and then all the other validators are charged with checking that everything happened according to the rules. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, absolutely. And also updating and keep updating the order book. So when one order has been essentially matched and finalized, they need to update the order book and saying this order does not exist anymore. It has been either finalized, or maybe it has a missed or cancelled, for example. And what you want to think about is why exchanges which are built on the order book type of technology, which is not an AMM. AMMs and order book type of exchanges are very different. But the order books allows essentially orders to be very high velocity, and people might be taking orders and cancelling orders in a very dynamic way. And this is why this kind of exchanges, order book exchanges, are very popular, and they offer the deepest liquidity in general, as well as the best price discovery, because you've got this functionality where people can place order, cancel orders, should it be buy or sell orders, and this is how you get like the most optimized price discovery.
So this brings us to the question of this that you mentioned several times, fast finality, using proof of stake to achieve this. Are you going to have a mindset, or do you have some ideas about what the final block time could be? Is dYdX, I'm expecting it to be set up to be a faster chain. But what's your guys thinking?
It will definitely be fast. I think the testnet in a few weeks will tell us more about the velocity. So if some of you in the audience are validators, please feel free to join the public testnet of dYdX, and you will be able to see firsthand how fast is the chain. I don't think it's a race for speed of block. To be honest, of course you want to be fast enough, but we don't have this dependency, right? So the order book is not sitting on the chain; it's sitting on the memory of the validators. So if the chain is a little bit slower, but does the consensus properly and fairly, that's probably enough. So there is always this balance and this kind of trade-off you need to find between speed, security, and trust. And I'm confident that dYdX will deliver this balance in a very efficient manner. But it's not a race. It's not a race for speed of block. It's I think an efficient chain, essentially being the foundation of an efficient application layer, and makes them work together in good sync. But it's not only about the chain.
Right. I'm expecting that the block proposer could give a soft confirmation of the match immediately to the dApp, basically, so the dApp can see, yes, there has been a match, and then it appears on chain in a few seconds, right? I mean, you could sort of improve the UX for traders to give them fast feedback.
Absolutely.
So very interesting tech. I'm curious to see how the public testnet works out. Again, repeating the call to validators if you guys are interested in checking this out. So since we're talking about validators, I'm expecting, it doesn't feel like it will be a hugely hardware sensitive service, but I'm expecting definitely validators will have to have some fast connections and some, let's say, stronger CPUs to run that matching engine. Do you guys have any notion of, what would be the requirements?
From what I heard so far from people participating in various testnets, the feedback was you needed a fair machine, but as you say, it's nothing very, very massive or very demanding. So again, in a few weeks, we will get like more requirement and more documentation available. But I would say nothing unexpected in terms of machine requirements. Better connections is definitely helping.
Low latency.
Absolutely. Right. But overall, an order book essentially is a small text file. So even though it might contain a lot of information, it's not a very heavy file to share. And on the block side of things, it can take a little bit more time. That's part of the consensus. So as many chains in the Cosmos ecosystem, eventually I can foresee things settling up around 100 validators. Maybe a little bit more, but not so much. And we'll find out how the community essentially decide if there is some kind of momentum to grow the number of validators step by step. But this is one of the good things with the SDK from Cosmos. A lot of experience, a lot of great community when we reach out to some other project within the Cosmos ecosystem. Extremely collaborative, extremely supportive. It's a great experience, to be honest with you. I spend a lot of time in the Ethereum space, and starting a journey in the Cosmos space is very exciting. The people are just welcoming and extremely smart, and they've got this goodwill to share their experience and make sure that as many project comes, they get some support and deliver the best of their potential.
We're super happy to hear that. So Cosmos community, of course, we can't not talk about IBC. Do you guys have plans to use IBC, or how is dYdX designing, bridging or communicating with other blockchains?
I have no information for you on this one, to be honest with you. I'm eager to know as well, but I don't know yet.
Be super interested to understand. It's obviously I'd expect IBC to be extensively used inside Cosmos as sort of the tech that's ready to connect to anybody. But I'd be curious, what's going to happen as you guys connect to other ecosystems, what bridges you guys pick. So obviously it's a key security sort of friction point, let's say, in today's world, right? You can always build the blockchain you're on, but then you also need to interact with all these other guys and move assets around. So yeah, excited to hear what you guys will.
On paper, if we want to extrapolate a little bit, I think shared security on dYdX, given the descriptions I shared about the job of validators in the context of dYdX, it's probably going to take a little bit of time, right? It's not a simple and straightforward validator job. The validators within dYdX are hosting a version of the order book. They are building the consensus on the order's finality as well. So shared security might be coming, but I would say looking at this from afar, I can foresee it's not going to come immediately, given the specific role of validators in the context of the dYdX chain versus more classic blockchains.
You guys started with perps focusing on perpetuals. Are there plans to support any other financial primitive, or are you just going to go, all in on perpetuals?
So that's a good decision for the community to discuss later on. I guess from what we can reconcile today from conversations within the community, the perpetuals will remain a strong focus in the next months. With what has been disclosed also publicly, the possible birth of permissionless markets, helping essentially perpetuals market to be listed in a much faster kind of pace, with the right framework of risk management. So that's something the community of dYdX will discuss, will vote for. That's already kind of expressed, and I've made some progress. So that's very exciting. But we foresee for the moment, at least from what we can reconcile for now, a focus on perpetuals. But who knows? There is maybe partnerships. There is many things which can happen as soon as the chain launch and bringing some projects closer to the dYdX ecosystem.
What are you guys' plans around open sourcing? So recently we've seen forking was always a risk, and it used to happen in crypto. Now, in response to that, some projects are deciding to keep parts or all or parts of their stack closed. What is dYdX's stance on this?
So dYdX Trading, who is building the version 4 of dYdX protocol, has committed to open source the full stack of dYdX, from the basic code of validators up to the user interface. So expect in the coming months, step by step, to have all the code open source and available for people to study further and consider possibly integrating.
That's a fantastic commitment to transparency. Looking forward to digging through some of that myself. Lastly, I have a standard question. When mainnet? So you mentioned the public testnet's coming up soon. Do you guys have any plans on the roadmap to launch mainnet?
There is many things happening within the dYdX ecosystem. So publicly, there was a plan, and there is a plan for 5 different milestones to essentially bring the protocol to the mainnet launch. So we are entering the milestone 4 of 5, which is essentially the public testnet, which is starting in a few weeks. This public testnet will last a few months. It will last the time it's required to essentially get stable software, right? So we are all impatient to see this reaching the finish line, but it has to reach the finish line when it's ready, and software is ready when it's ready.
Absolutely.
But the good thing is we are progressing very well. There is no major delay which has been announced. So step 4 of 5 is starting in a few weeks, and I guess by later this year we should be able to get more clarity on when the mainnet will go. But join the public testnet. There will be essentially all the software available in open source, available for testing, available for people who want to study and possibly connect later on, or being part of the journey of dYdX. So that's on one side of the activity on the dYdX, is all the software part, which is progressing very well with the testnet, as I mentioned earlier. Another side of actions is really the governance. So the version 4 of dYdX being led by DAOs and by the community, we've seen growing over the past months a really lively ecosystem. So there is today 2 DAOs in the ecosystem of dYdX. So the first DAO is a grants DAO, which has been supporting many different programs around research, risk management, go-to-market. And earlier this year was created by the community the Operation DAO, the dYdX Operations DAO. So the Operations DAO is essentially has been allocated a fundraise of $6 million of dYdX token by the community, coming from the community treasury, to essentially run the indexer for the testnet and the mainnet, to run front end, to run some various services around the engineering which are required for a proper launch of V4. So this DAO is an independent entity within the ecosystem, funded by the community and the community treasury, and which will be focusing really on a lot of things related to engineering. So a lot of product progress on the roadmap in terms of features and getting us closer to the version 4 mainnet via the testnet, the public testnet, as well in terms of governance, a lot of different votes going through, and the enablement of the DAOs. So it makes the dYdX ecosystem super lively, super busy, and extremely excited to welcome the version 4.
Super excited to see what's coming next. I think that's a great place to end the podcast. So thanks very much, Charles, for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you. And, best of luck and tailwinds to dYdX.
Thanks for having me. We'll keep you posted with the progress for sure.